Are you considering investing in a buffer ETF? If so, and like with any other investment, you should carefully understand the benefits and the risks associated with that investment. And while buffer ETFs sound appealing at a first glance, you gain some return and risk manage some losses, that does not mean that they're risk-free investments or that they can't underperform under certain market conditions. To understand the main problem with buffer ETFs, and before we can come up with potential solutions for said problems, let's quickly review how buffer ETFs are built. By the way, if you are not familiar with buffer ETFs, how they work and how they're built, make sure to check out our previous video on the subject. So here we have the general structure of buffer ETFs. In this scenario, we're looking at a hypothetical 10% buffer, 5% cap buffer ETF. Remember, to build this buffer, we're going to buy a deep in-the-money call to gain equity-like exposure, buy an at-the-money put to seek some level of protection, sell an out-of-the-money put, and an out-of-the-money call to monetize these positions. The strike price for the short put would dictate the buffer size, while the strike price for the call would determine the cap. If you're like most people, you probably find this structuring really complex. And of course, mostly everything that includes options can be complex. The question we should ask, however, is, can we achieve similar payoffs with simpler systems? Before answering the question, we must first see the risks associated with buffer ETFs to see how we can improve upon this strategy. Imagine a parent that takes out their kid on a bike ride. Any good parent would make sure that their kid is wearing a helmet. Yes, we want to avoid any major accidents that could result from the kid falling or taking a hit in the head. This helmet is kind of like buffer ETFs. They should protect against smaller falls. Now, imagine you take your kid to ride, this time at the Grand Canyon, and the kid's getting awfully close to the edge of a cliff. Another parent sees you and yells, "Hey, what are you doing? Don't let your kid so close to the edge." At which point you reply, "Chill out. He's wearing a helmet." Of course, a helmet won't always protect you, especially from that high of a fall. Neither will buffer ETFs. To see what the pitfalls of buffer ETF products are, let's go back to our hypothetical example and let's ask a simple question. Is it always a good idea to buy? So let's ask the following 3 questions to complement that question. First, would you buy at the cap when there is only downside? In this case, why not just buy the underlying where you also have some downside, but unlike the buffer ETF, you also have the upside? Second question would be, would you buy at the buffer when there's mostly downside? Here, like the underlying, you have all the downside. But unlike the underlying, you do not have all the upside. In other words, you're taking in the risk of the underlying, but not the potential return. Lastly, if you wouldn't buy buffer ETFs at these critical points, why would you even hold? Going back to our chart, instead of expressing everything in terms of strike prices, longs and shorts, structure payoffs, let's just simplify this whole thing. Think of these returns as a normal distribution. This green area represents the gains you're exposed to. Most of the time, you're likely to gain some returns, even if they're not mind-blowing. The cool part is that you'll also get to miss out on smaller losses. All in all, you get some upside capture and some loss mitigation. But for the bad news, you are also exposed to left tail events or the life-changing events that could wipe out portfolios. In my opinion, this is the question that needs to be answered in risk management. And unfortunately for buffer ETFs, they do little to nothing to tackle this question. And it's not just that, but you're also not exposed to right tail events or the life-changing returns that come every now and then. Missing on these returns could also be behaviorally painful. Unfortunately, these 2 cracks in buffer portfolios have the potential to bring disappointing returns, or at the very least, leave a wide gap in risk management. And historically, that's right in line with what we've seen with buffer ETF performance. So what can we do about it? Remember what I said, if we can simplify this entire process, perhaps make it a bit more affordable and actually tackle these 2 big problems, then I think that's something worth exploring. So whether you're thinking of how to tackle risk management or want to complement your buffer exposures, I got you. In our next video, we'll go over how we can either replace or potentially improve upon buffer strategies by addressing these 2 problems in buffer ETFs. So remember to subscribe and hit the bell. You're not going to want to miss it. Here at Alpha Architect, our goal is to empower investors through education. We're an asset management firm that focuses on delivering affordable alpha to our clients. If you want more educational content like this, head to alphaarchitect.com. I'll see you there.